This should be impossible now.
It should be impossible now?
You don't know about the...
Oh my god, don't do this to me. I don't know about the what? Did you want to fight? Is that the deal?
So as y'all know, the Flash movie is finally in production after, what, a 4-year delay? And after several other directors and writers have joined and left the project. And hell, wasn't Ray Fisher apparently supposed to be in it as Cyborg, but his part was scrapped right before they started filming? Yeah, I don't have much faith in this movie after the production hell it's been through. Although both Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck are in it as Batman, so that's pretty cool. There's also Supergirl, and she's looking like a baddie, so... Anyway, at DC Fandome, we got a little teaser clip, basically confirming that they're going to be doing the Flashpoint paradox. And by having 2 Batmans and a Supergirl and an alternate version of himself, clearly they're introducing the multiverse and whatnot, but there have been rumors swirling around about what Warner Brothers really plans to do with this movie. But before we get to that, here's a word from today's sponsor.
Is your cat clawing at your furnitures? Think there's no answer? You're so stupid! There is! Kitten mittens!
So the rumor is, Warner Brothers plans to use the Flashpoint paradox as a way to change certain events in the early DCEU movies to basically erase them and to reboot the DCEU with a clean slate. Because you know, the Flash can travel through time, and clearly he's going to be seeing different universes and timelines, so Warner Brothers could use this as an opportunity to basically change everything. Now over the last year I've been hearing these rumors and seeing the articles and videos about it, but recently this conversation has been popping up again after a tweet that Grace Randolph sent out. So someone said, there's also one for the Flash going around saying he's going to have to visit previous DCEU movies, including Man of Steel, and that Michael Shannon is coming back as Zod. Do you know if that's true? And she said, last time I heard Barry visits Metropolis during that fight, so maybe he interacts with Zod. Now this is Grace Randolph we're talking about, so her scoops are either pretty accurate or off the mark completely. But for now, let's just go with it. So between the continuous rumors about rebooting the DCEU and now seeing this, fans have been theorizing and putting together how they think it would go, and how changing just one thing will basically affect all the early DCEU movies. Also, it's floating around that apparently they're going to have Steve Trevor not die in Wonder Woman because Barry's going to be there to save him. Don't know where that one came from, but we'll go over that too. So there's this Instagram account called Slanderverse Memes, and he made a post breaking down how changing these events will affect all the DCEU movies, and how this basically creates a clean slate for Warner Bros. To essentially redo it all. Now I've seen other comments and posts and threads, but I think theirs is the most coherent, easy to follow, and breaks it down pretty well. So I'm basically going to be using their post as a blueprint to explain to you guys how it might go down. So for the sake of argument, let's say the Flash does go back to Man of Steel and stop the Metropolis fight between Zod and Superman. Without the final battle between Superman and Zod where they destroyed the city, this doesn't give Lex or Bruce motivation in Batman vs Superman to kill Superman. And since the fight never happened, Zod didn't die. And since Zod didn't die, you can't create Doomsday. So now there's no Doomsday. And since there's no Doomsday, that means Superman doesn't get killed in BVS. So basically the entirety of BVS just doesn't happen. And because of this also means there is no Justice League or even the Snyder Cut. Because the Mother Boxes only awaken after Superman gets killed. And since Superman doesn't get killed, the Mother Boxes don't wake up and they don't call to Steppenwolf. So now there's no reason to form the Justice League. But it also affects 2016's Suicide Squad. Because since the events of BVS didn't happen, and there was no Doomsday and Superman is still alive, which means Amanda Waller has no leverage to form Task Force X. So now Suicide Squad is erased. Now in the post they say that because Suicide Squad was Joker and Harley's first appearances in DCEU, that Birds of Prey can't happen. I disagree because Birds of Prey still feels like its own solo adventure, and you can watch it without having knowledge of the 2016 Suicide Squad and it works just fine. And you could essentially just treat this as Harley's first appearance. In the same post they go on to say that the 2021 Suicide Squad movie can't happen because they're going with Birds of Prey not happening. Again, I also kind of disagree because the new Suicide Squad is basically a soft reboot anyway, and it doesn't rely on the events of Birds of Prey or the 2016 Suicide Squad. I mean hell, James Gunn wrote Suicide Squad without even knowing that Harley Quinn had her own solo movie. So yeah, the 2021 Suicide Squad can still happen, along with the Peacemaker show. Although a movie that is affected is the solo Aquaman movie, because that directly references Steppenwolf and events from Justice League. And since the team was never formed, Aquaman isn't going around being a hero, and instead just a loner by himself again. So by just changing the third act of Man of Steel, it got rid of Batman v Superman, both versions of Justice League, Suicide Squad, and Aquaman. So now let's go ahead and talk about retconning Steve Trevor's death. So by having Steve Trevor not die at the end of Wonder Woman, that basically changes the entire events of Wonder Woman 1984. Because after World War I imagine that Steve and Diana would get together, and they would live together for a while, and he would probably die of natural causes, so she wouldn't feel so compelled to wish him back, since they lived a full life together. So most of the movie just wouldn't happen, because the entire plot hinges on her wishing Trevor back. So yeah, Wonder Woman 1984 would just be gone. And the post goes on to talk about Shazam, and how it's basically its own standalone story, but it references a bunch bunch of different DC heroes. You got the Aquaman shirt, Ben Affleck's Batarang, a newspaper explicitly saying that Superman is back, so that not only references his death in BVS, but also his return in both versions of Justice League. And of course there's that post-credit scene where Superman shows up, wearing the same suit he was wearing in the theatrical cut of Justice League, but because BVS didn't happen, and Justice League didn't happen, and neither did the Aquaman solo movie, it kinda means that Shazam can't happen because it's connecting itself to movies and events that no longer happened or exist. So yeah, by changing just one event, you essentially erase most of the DCEU. Certain movies can no longer happen, then other movies like Aquaman and Shazam are now referencing events that never occurred. So the only movies that are left basically unchanged are just the Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey. And by changing Steve Trevor's death, that gets rid of Wonder Woman 1984. So by changing those two events, you essentially wipe out the entire DCEU. And what this does is give Warner Bros. A blank canvas to work with, and they can slowly start recasting the heroes and making new solo movies. I mean, as of right now, you have Aquaman, Shazam, and Wonder Woman with upcoming movies after The Flash. I mean, they don't have a Superman right now, and even though Ben Affleck is coming back for the Flash movie, no one knows he's actually going to stick around. Hell, it looks like the Flash movie might be his last appearance, because they can erase him along with most of the DCEU. Not being the big Snyder fanboy that I am, of course I hate this decision, because his movies were the basis for the cinematic universe, and this in theory would just be a good way to retcon all those events. But honestly, I'm not really surprised. Warner Bros. Have been one to distance himself from Snyder since 2017, and this would be a good way to basically undo everything he did, to officially cut his connections to the DC universe. Now personally, instead of erasing everything, they should just roll with it, because it already happened. The movies are made. I mean hell, they could just ignore some events in the future movies, like they did with the Suicide Squad, or just leave it to just little references like in Shazam if they want. I mean, look at the MCU. As the movies went on, they changed and tweaked several things, but the best example is the Mandarin. They introduced him in 2013. Clearly fans didn't like it, so what did they do? As a bonus feature on Thor the Dark World, they have a little featurette showing Trevor getting confronted by a member of the Ten Rings, confirming that the real Mandarin is out there. And then fast forward several years later to Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings, and we get the real Mandarin. So there are ways to work with it without completely erasing it. You can always just change and tweak little things here and there, or come up with a good way to retcon it later on. Now typically I don't really listen to rumors, but the only reason I'm giving this one my attention is because I think there's a chance this actually might happen, and Warner Bros. Would go through with retconning and changing and erasing all the early DCEU movies, so they can essentially just reboot everything, and erase and ignore everything that came before. And I made a post asking you guys, do you think Warner Bros. Would actually do this? Is this the route you think they'll actually take? And most people said they wouldn't be surprised if they did. Yeah, me too. Now of course this is all just a rumor, no one actually knows. All we do know is that we're getting 2 Batmen, a Supergirl, and they're doing the Flashpoint paradox with time travel and seeing alternate universes. Although this does seem like the perfect setup if you want to reboot and erase everything, doesn't it? Well, that's gonna do it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, go and drop a like on it. And leave a comment, let me know, what do you guys think? Do you think they'll go this route? Will they reboot everything? Leave a comment, let me know. Guess I'll have to wait till next year to find out. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.
Your life is nothing. You serve zero purpose. You should kill yourself and give somebody else a piece of that oxygen and ozone layer that's covered up so that we can breathe inside this blue trap bubble. Because what are you here for? To worship me? Kill yourself. I mean that with 100%.